I have the smoking gun, and I'm going to put the naysayers in their place right now because I have definitive proof whether I am or I'm not.
Well, good day, Matthew Roberts. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Many people have seen you on my channel. We have made several videos, and I have to say, out of all the people I've had on my channel, you are one of the people that people were fascinated and were really kind of taken by. They really liked your personality beyond what our topic was. Now, our topic was that you believed, or our first video was how you didn't know who your father was, but you believed that it was Charles Manson. You went into a whole story with me about why you believed that, and we posted a video, and people were coming back and saying, well, he's been tested against Charles Manson's quote-unquote son, Jason, and their DNA doesn't match. Can you go into, in our story here, why that's the case? Because that seems to be really the main complaint people had with our video, was that they believe that because Jason is considered or is officially Charles Manson's son, that
Grandson.
yeah, they believe that you're not. So can you tell us your story?
Yeah, first let me back up and just clarify one thing, because it's funny how this seems to be like a stickler also, where I never believed or not believed I was his son. I just simply, relayed the story that was told to me by my mother and other factors. And I just wanted to find the truth. So at no point have I ever believed I was his son. I thought it was entirely possible and maybe even probable. But I have never once claimed to be his son, although all these hundreds of articles come out and says man claims to be the son of Charles. I've never said that. You'll never see an interview with those words coming out of my mouth. I get it. They don't, they wouldn't have a story if it was a man maybe or may not be Charles Manson's son. So they put those headlines on to get viewers or whatever. But in the case of Jason Friedman, okay, we did this thing with CNN, and by the way, I brought this idea to CNN. Nobody knew who Jason was. I turned him on to this idea that Jason may be the grandson, so maybe we could get some DNA testing with this guy.
That was the main thing what you were kind of fighting for years, was just to compare your DNA to Charles, right?
And yeah, and we're struggling to get it through the prisons because it's like a felony to smuggle things in and out of the prisons, and we got some wristbands that had some skin flakes on it, but it turned out to be compromised in some way, and so this thing with CNN was funny because they were saying he was Charlie's grandson and that there was no match between me and Jason, so therefore I'm not related to Charlie. And another interesting thing I want to bring up, it was my intention when they gave those results, I wanted to be as poker-faced as possible, to the extent that, I even picked up, if you watch, I picked up a bottle and put it in front of my face and took a drink just so there would be no reaction on my face whatsoever. And CNN comes out with this thing that, I look like someone, whatever, stole something from me or whatever. And they obviously scripted that from the get-go because I had no expression on my face. But be that as it may, from what I understand, Jason has never been proven to be related to Charlie Manson. I thought the opposite was true, that he was proven not to be. I don't know if he is or he isn't, but what I do know is that he has never offered any proof that he is. And
I had, just to interrupt a little, I had always heard that he had challenged that he was the son and that Charlie never showed up to court, and so he won by default. That's what I had heard.
Yeah, well, allegedly his father was Charles White or whatever, and I don't even think they were he was tested, but regardless of Jason, whether he's related or not related, with Kim contacted me, and back in the day, all we had was limited resources or whatever, but since I started this thing, so much had changed, and I hadn't realized how much had changed. Like with Ancestry.com, why did I think I had to have Charlie's DNA when you can test family members and you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
so that's what Kim did. I had no idea. I didn't really know a lot about genealogy, and I still don't. But that's why I employed the experts. And I think that what we should do is just let her lay out what she found, and I think you're going to be very surprised. And I know I was.
Now you contacted me because you said, all you said was, you didn't give me an answer. You just said, I now know, I have proof who my father is. I've known for a short time, but I want you, Jordan, because you don't seem to have an agenda to put it out.
Yeah.
So today we're meeting with Kim, who contacted you. Kim, tell us your story.
Hi, my name's Kim Vaughn. I met Matthew originally in about 2010, around the same time that I had the discovery that I did not know my biological father's identity. I was 47 at the time, so it was a big shock. Right then was when the developing genetic genealogy and DNA and ancestry was just beginning. And I knew that that was a tool that I could use because people had given me a lot of bad information, sent me down a lot of bad trails, weren't giving me straight answers. I was very confused. It was very overwhelming. But for the next 6 years, I spent learning genetic genealogy and how to use the information. And as I was learning to do it, the programs and the information were just, they were growing exponentially. I couldn't believe the leaps that the whole system was taking. Genetic genealogy and DNA had just exploded while I was watching it in real time and learning more and more about it as I went. So after 6 years, I found my biological father and went on to find several other identities of unknown parentage, paternal parentage. But along that time, I had kind of stayed in the loop with Matthew because I saw what he was going through, and I very much related to it personally. And I felt really bad at how he was being maligned and mistreated by people who had opinions that weren't based on fact. They were just opinions. They didn't know any more about genetic genealogy than anyone, and I only knew enough to know that when I saw his interview on CNN with Jason Freeman, I was horribly disappointed by the lack of what's the word?
Proof?
Of proof that they did not disclose how they had identified Jason Freeman as being related to Charles Manson. So if you can't prove he's related to Charles Manson,
Right.
how can you prove Matthew? And I felt so bad for Matthew.
So you contacted Matthew?
Years later.
Okay, and then
Because-
how did that go? What happened there?
Well, I contacted him and I said, I watched what happened and I've been doing genetic genealogy all these years. I wanted to know if he would be interested in allowing me to access his DNA in the system and be able to review everything. And I told Matthew, because I knew what he'd been through, that I wanted to make him feel safe, that first I would tell him whether or not he was Charles Manson's son, definitively.
You weren't going into this with the hopes, like you didn't really care either way. You were
I
kind of
was like
telling me
him.
you
I was
just
like-
wanted to let him know definitively who it was.
Yes, I went into it. Actually, I kind of had a bend towards believing he was Charles Manson's son, but I wasn't sure. You cannot know till you have the DNA.
Right, you can look like someone, have mannerisms,
You can have
you can have all the
everything.
stories, but there's always something that could be.
And I
so.
had seen it all with my own eyes and had been through it myself personally. So I told Matthew, I'll not only tell you whether or not you're Charles Manson's son definitively, but if he's not, I'll tell you who your father is.
Okay.
And so with that, Matthew and I developed a trust, and I met him and we did the DNA test. I made sure he
was there.
And
Okay.
every step, it was complete disclosure, full disclosure. Matthew had full control at all times, and he did his DNA test. He put it in the envelope. he put it in the mail. And when the DNA test came back, and I entered it into the system and put it with a match, it was very clear to me what the answer was. And so I had to share that news with him.
Which was?
That Charles Manson was not his biological father. And I did that through a lengthy series of relatedness through all of the people in the Charles Manson family tree, related by way of his mother.
Okay.
Because it was only by way of Charles Manson's mother that you could prove you were or were not related to him, because Charles Manson didn't know who his father was.
Absolutely. Well, you probably were able to figure that out, probably.
I did, and I told Matthew, I said, your story for me while I'm working on it is called Mother, Baby, Father, Maybe, because you do not know for sure who Charles Manson's father is. And I explained to him, so these are the targets that you would have to be related to by way of his mother to determine whether or not he was Charles Manson's biological son. And he was not.
Okay.
Absolutely was not. And so I shared that with Matthew.
Now, would something like that also tell you Jason Freeman? Would that connect you? I mean, I don't know if you look that far, but would that connect you to him had he...
At the time, Jason Freeman, to my knowledge, was not in the DNA database.
Okay.
And at that time, if Matthew had been related to Jason Freeman, it would have shown a match if he was in there. But I don't know if he was in there or not. So that was not even an option.
Okay.
So the next step was, and when I shared the news with Matthew that Charles Manson was not his father, he was fine with that. And I said, but Matthew, I'm going to keep my promise to you, and I will find your father. So now I had to start back at the beginning.
Interesting.
I had to start right at the beginning, and I had to take the DNA. And the other thing was, Matthew wanted to be even sure that it was his DNA, that there wasn't something sketchy in the system, you know, because he had so little trust in everybody.
Yeah, right.
That I went to the extra lengths of making sure that I could show him it was his DNA in the system, because I could show him how his mother matched him, because there were relatives in the system that matched his mother, very close relatives. And so it was 100%. Matthew was convinced, he was absolutely sure that it was his DNA.
Finally got absolute
confidence,
closure on this matter.
So we had his mother's DNA matched to him, and I could show him how the matches in the DNA matched his mother's family on both sides, by way of his mother and by her father.
Now that you know who your father is, was this someone that you ever knew in your life? Is this someone you've ever met? Is this someone that your mom ever talked about? I mean...
Well, it's fascinating, actually. What's fascinating is what we discovered, who some of the folks I was related to are just as fascinating as Charles Manson. I'll let her go over some of those.
Yeah, because one thing I want to say is, I don't think... a lot of the interest in people watching the videos that I've done with you and Soft White Underbelly, I'm not so sure people are attracted to the Manson aspect as much as they, for some reason, like you and relate to you. So I do really think that they're curious.
And I hope so, because that was so important to me. I really did not like the idea that people were drawn to me because they thought I was Charles Manson's son. And you can't
help that when it's someone that high profile, right. and you just asking the question and then looking quasi, it's
bizarre how the way everything worked out. It really is. I can't explain it, but what I can say now is that any interest in me now is 100% for me and not because I'm related to him, and that's a big thing for me. Like,
yeah, You're a musician. We recorded some of your music,
and that whole connection ruined my career. If anything, I didn't do anything for it, and man, it feels, and I'm very proud of myself in one respect, because it would have been very easy for me to say, yes, I'm Charles Manson's son. I never once, even like Pink Sneakers, for example, Hulk Hogan's production company, they called me and they flew me out to Orlando, Florida, and they wanted to do a reality show with me. So they're doing a little trailer, and they're like, okay, so we're going to film this to shop to the network, so tell us your name and that you're Charles Manson's son. And I said, well, my name is, told my name, and I said, but I don't want to say I'm Charles Manson's son because I don't actually have proof of that. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem, okay. So here we go again, let's do it again. Tell us your name and that you're Charles Manson's son.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
And if I would have just said I'm Charles Manson's son, I would have had a reality show, I would have had a book deal with Simon & Schuster, and had all this. But I just couldn't do it because I didn't know, and I never did. And thank God I didn't, because now it's like
You'd feel like a hoax, honestly. I know.
I would totally feel like a hoax, and man, now I don't care who Jason's related to, or if he's really, if she wants to go on and, challenge him to put his money where his mouth is, I'm all for it. But like, I'm washing my hands with all this. You kidding me? I'm done with it. I am so over it and so ready to move on with my life. That's why I'm very excited about, doing this Patreon thing and getting all this stuff up there, because the stuff I went through is insane and ridiculous, and I got a lot of it on video and document a lot of it, and I'm going to put it all up there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. You're gonna do a Patreon for the very first time, that basically you're gonna put a lot of the background of your life and what you've dealt with, so people that are interested in you as a person can get more content there.
Right, and I was so vehemently opposed to making money off of anything having to do with Charlie. I never charged for my music. I never, went on and did any kind of, funding site or whatever. And everything I gave away for free.
And you don't charge people to interview you, which, you did a video for me, which is 1 million views. You did one for Soft White Underbelly. It's 1 million views. I mean,
I never made money off of any of those. I mean, you pay me a little tiny bit for some expenses, and I think Soft White Underbelly.
Yeah, once the video is doing like insane, I was like, we wanted to help you out,
but it's never been about the money, and so now I feel free now, where I'm okay. Now it's not selling any kind of memorabilia or whatever, associated with him, because it was a horrible, heinous thing. So now let's see how much interest is in me.
And you said that what you found out was almost as fascinating. So tell us what you found out.
Well, first, his mother's family had some really interesting history, but I want to start by sharing, this is just a photo layout of Matthew's mother and his grandfather and his great-grandfather by his mother. I mean, the look is just...
the eyes and everything.
Yeah.
The facial features, definitely.
Yeah, the resemblance to Matthew was just uncanny. So he gets a lot from his mother's family, but when you put this in a lineup...
Yeah, oh wow. Yeah.
I was just stunned when I could see where the resemblance...
Could think that, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he's got Alec Baldwin or Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah.
He's got this really uncanny resemblance where Charles Manson could fit in a physical way.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
His family.
I mean, gosh, the nose and everything. So
yeah, this was just, it was really, there were a lot of wow moments. But it turns out that by way of his mother's family that Matthew has very deep roots to the Mormon Church.
Really?
Yes, right back to the very beginning. He is a descendant of a man named Jacob and Sarah Warnock family, the Scotts, who James Wesley Scott was one of the original founders, along with Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Right there, back in the day.
Wow.
So Matthew is about as far from Charles Manson on his mother's side as you could get.
Even though you look similar, and wow.
But he had these very deep roots to the Mormon Church. It was fascinating. And so I was able to share with him his direct line to Joseph Smith. It was a real journey, and it was fun to share with him that he had something that
wasn't a great grandmother married to him.
He was actually
his
5 times great grandfather was brought from Canada to the United States to work with Joseph Smith.
Wow.
And so they were right there, and and it was really fascinating because when you saw his ancestry matches, there was just an avalanche of matches through his very extended family.
I bet, especially.
Yeah. And so it was just like...
Had you ever heard anything like that before related to your family? I mean,
No,
did you know anything?
No,
like
I
that?
hadn't, because I didn't know my family, my biological family, on either side, and I didn't know anything. In fact, I never knew my genetic lineage, or I had no idea what I was. I didn't care. I felt like, okay,
You're your own person.
yeah, I can't possibly be racist because I could be anything, So, it was interesting to find out, I was quite a bit, Irish, and there was Native American Indian and German, and, it doesn't surprise me, but I had no idea, and
Does it help? Does it change anything for you?
it doesn't really. I mean, what's even more interesting is that, okay, so we found out who my father was between one of two people, and so there's an uncle that contacted us, and it would be either his brother, one of his two brothers. One of the brothers is dead. The other brother, who would be either my uncle or my father, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Is a guy who's still alive, but he had just had a stroke. But this guy was like highly involved in music, which was fascinating.
Yeah.
In fact, he, I guess when they were discovering some Beethoven long lost scripts or something, they hired him and flew him to Germany to determine if they were legitimate or not.
And here's a fun one. When we determined that it was 100% confirmed that Matthew's biological father is one of two brothers, one of them had already passed. I actually found the photos of both gentlemen, and there again, put them in a lineup.
Wow, yeah.
Now, how could that happen? So, this is the one candidate who has already passed. He died young in a car. He was killed in he was run over by a car.
Gosh, I could totally
yeah.
see this guy
And
in your face.
And this brother, actually both of them, but this brother in particular is a highly accomplished musician.
Wow.
And it was stunning because...
And they were in Berkeley at the time.
And they were both in Berkeley.
When my mother was there.
Yeah.
So we do know that my mother was there with Charlie, hanging out with Charlie, and he had a very fond feelings for her or whatever, and maybe she got involved in some of those extracurricular activities we were talking about.
But
it was free love then,
this
apparently
brother,
she was free loving with people other than...
This brother was going to Berkeley at that time. He was attending Berkeley.
Interesting.
This brother, he was a few years younger, would have either easily been visiting or, coming to see him.
I was going to say, can you tell by their date of birth, maybe the age? Or okay.
No, they're too close.
They
were both very close.
He could tell me, he could give me DNA and we could find out, but he just had a stroke, and the family wasn't real eager to meet me or anything.
Right.
The kids were all very successful. Like, the one was like what was she, ambassador to Iraq or something like that?
Yeah, she was an ambassador.
Can you imagine that?
And the other brothers and sisters, half siblings or cousins, they're either half siblings or they're cousins, are also very highly accomplished musicians. And
That's
it was
cool.
just fascinating because...
From Australia, right?
Do you remember I was listening to that one, Matthew had a song that he had recorded on a video that I had watched.
Probably mine, yeah.
And I watched, I found a published piece of music by the brother that he lives in Germany now. He had a piece that was recorded, and I just sat back in my chair. I couldn't believe my ears. It was almost like they had written the same song.
No kidding. Have you been able to hear this yet? Have you seen it?
I saw it. He's got a video on YouTube where he's got 10 Chinese girls that are performing his song.
It's a composition played by the recorder,
Yeah.
And they had a group of girls performing it live, and it was astonishing to hear both of them side to side. I couldn't believe my ears. I actually called my son in and said, "Listen to this," and I had him listen. And then I said, "Now listen to this," and he goes, "Yeah, it's the same song."
We could probably figure those out,
Just-
make a comparison.
Like,
or
how
whatever.
could that happen?
That's amazing.
It was
That's pretty
really
wild.
amazing.
Can I-
And then I came to find out because my uncle on my mother's side, I got in contact with, and this Uncle Bob, and this guy, I had a great. I mean, I just love this guy. It's so cool me talking to him, and I haven't met him yet, but man, he just. You know, like I got fascinated with rocks for a minute, and he's like, "Yeah, we used to go rock hunting," and all these similarities, and you know, I found out quite a bit about my biological mother, and she had a very tragic childhood, and you know, but she was a very accomplished pianist, and she got a scholarship to go to this prestigious school, I guess, and at a certain point, she had some sort of a breakdown, and
That's how she ended up in
Yeah,
Berkeley.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh wow.
But she was quite a musician herself, so that just totally makes so much sense, you know.
That both of your parents potentially
Right.
extremely talented musicians,
Right.
which people loved about you, you know.
And the music just was in my blood, and it came so easy for me, really. I mean, I'm self-taught on just about everything except for drums. I went to MIT Musicians Institute for that, but you know, it was just fun, really, and fascinating to find all this stuff
Yeah.
out. And you know,
Do you want to have a relationship with anybody in that family? Is that something you were pursuing?
well, you know,
or
with my father's side, since we reached out to them and they basically rejected, and you know, then no. I
yeah, you
don't.
can just
I-
kind of
I
leave it
just-
there and leave it in their hands if they want to.
And you know, he had just had a stroke and he was in pretty rough shape at the time, so I felt like that might be a little bit, you know, too much. And
Yeah.
and so I'm going to leave that one as it lies. But on my mother's
You have the
side-
answer you were looking for on that
and
case,
see, that's the
at
thing.
least.
I don't even care who the father is per se. It's that I know now it's either one of these two guys, and I
Yeah.
know it's not Charlie. That's really so much. I mean, that's like everything to me. Like that, you know, I don't even care if I figure out which one of the two it is, you know, because I'm related to those people either way, whether they're half brothers and half sisters or cousins, and probably we're not going to have much of a relationship anyway. But you know, like if all I got out of it is this cool uncle on my mother's side, that's great.
That's
You know,
awesome.
That's cool, and I hope, you know, we can spend more time getting to know each other, and because you know this whole thing, I really did take a hit. My you know, adopted family, I took a hit with this thing. You know, that relationship went bad, and I feel bad about it, and you know, it's crazy all that
So
I
you
went
basically
through.
lost all of your family
Everything,
in the end.
and you know, I didn't want to be like, woe me, and be all defeated or whatever, and show people all that stuff when it happened, because I wanted to wait till I was doing better, and you know,
Yeah.
so I could come
And the
at it.
world the way we are now, even if you put it out with no pretense to it, people look at it because you're known in the world and they go, oh, he probably won something out of it. So I totally understand your feelings about it.
Yeah.
Now the cool thing is, you know, you are your own person. You went to Musicians Institute, you make your own music, you're very interesting with your tarot cards and everything. So now that we, you know, have all this aside, you're saying that you're now doing a Patreon. How can people find you on Patreon? And that will be loaded with all of your art,
Right.
all of your story,
And I'm-
anything that they want to know about you as a
Right,
person.
and I'm going to put everything on there. I mean, I even had a hernia for a long time that went from this little thing to this big thing to this huge thing. And I'm not even going to put those up because I had no idea what a hernia even was, and I don't think anybody else does. And you know what? Wait till people see what this condition, because a lot of people have it. What it can do to the male anatomy is shocking, you know. And I had surgery, thank God, and recovered very well. The surgery went well. Although ever since I've had trouble breathing, like I got another condition from this thing, and I'm trying to recover from it. It's been terrible, actually. You know, I have not been able to breathe right. Sometimes, you know, I got to get this breather. I'm going to suffocate almost. It's like all that inflammation like went into my lungs or something. It's been, you know, kind of a mess. So, anyways, I just think it would, you know, I'm just all about being transparent and the truth, and if that stuff is shocking to you, then don't look at it. But I think a lot of people are going to be pretty pretty fascinated by it, like, you know, because I don't think people quite realize what, you know, what
I think people are drawn to people with an exciting life, whether it's positive or negative, and you definitely have that. And I don't see any reason, you know, I do a vlog just like this where I go out and meet people that have a story. I go see things I want to do, and that's basically what your Patreon is. You're just sharing your life with people and hoping to get a solid core of people that care about you and are interested in your life.
So we'll post, you know, the link like we did with the email last time, and I got all those tarot reading requests. But it's right now it's okay. So it's Matthew, but I spelled it as MAA and then FFHEW.
Okay. Instead of 2 T's, it's FF.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And, so
and double A's.
Right. So it's, you know, so I didn't have to have squiggly mark. And,
okay.
You know,
Matthew, and then it's Roberts also?
No.
Or just Matthew?
Just Matthew with, with the 2 S's. But hopefully we can put a link and people can just click on it and go to it. And you know, it's a work in progress. So, like I said, I you know, in 2009, we had a record-breaking 200 million people Google my name. Can you believe that?
I believe it.
After being on... you know, Anderson Cooper and that In Touch magazine, and that all happened from the Globe article that came out in 2003 to being 200 million people. I mean, it's incredible, you know. And I didn't make one phone call contacting these news people. They all contacted me, and I sometimes wonder when, you know, when I first told that guy with the Globe the story, and he's like, "Do you mind if I shop around for a deal or something?" If I would have just said no. Well, things would have been different, but you know, I'm always about, like, if they're interested, then who am I to not tell them it's the truth, you know. So it went a crazy way, and I'm still trying to understand and reel in how all this happened.
You know, you could have held this proof to yourself and nobody would have ever been the wiser, but you're coming out and telling us, you know, the full story. And you said, interestingly enough, you found out that people thought you were dead?
Well, no, what was interesting about my birth certificate is my birth certificate didn't have a doctor's signature on it, and like half of it was crooked from the other half, and it was stamped one date here and one date here, and it was all kind of suspicious, to say the least. And turns out that my grandfather told the doctor to tell my grandmother that I died. And my grandmother protested and said, "No, I saw his name on the incubator." And the doctor's like, "Nope, he died." And because my grandmother wanted to keep me and my grandfather did not.
Wow.
And you got to wonder, like, what kind of a doctor would, like, they must have had some extreme, you know, power or something. And then my uncle was telling me how my grandmother was like a Freemason or something. People would call when their kids got in trouble, and she'd call the judge to get them out of trouble. So to be able to get a doctor to lie and say the kid is dead is pretty hardcore, pretty extreme. So that's apparently what happened. So my, you know, grandmother, I guess, thought I was dead for a while. But you know, and my mother had, I guess, gone through some things. She had 3 really close friends that all got murdered. And, you know, she had some experiences that didn't bode well for her and created some of that mental illness that just got exacerbated when she got a little older in life.
Yeah, now you at least have answers.
Totally.
So thank you for sharing all this. We will share your Patreon, so people that want to hear more about the stories you were just telling us, there is a deep well of history to Matthew's life. So thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And you know, let me just say one thing. When you were saying that I could have, you know, kept it to myself or whatever, to be able to be the one that brought it out is golden to me, because it would have been terrible for somebody like outing me, like I was lying or trying to keep it or whatever. So, you know, even the little space that went on between me finding out and me coming and getting on your show was like I was just biting my nails going, you know,
hoping somebody didn't find out first.
Right. And it just feels really good to finally after all these years to get this closure. And I know for a fact and definitively, and also have all this other stuff to kind of be interested in and look into that Kim discovered, you know, which I think I'm going to put up on Patreon too. Like, she's got a whole thing of, you know, really fascinating stuff that happened with some of my my progenitors.
Nice, man. Well, be well, and we will catch up with you next time we're in town.
Thank you, John.